this afternoon. Okay, and yeah. Okay, this afternoon we're here to talk about electrifying Fremantle, and we'll be talking about electrifying Whitecomb Valley, and we also have a representative of electrifying Curtin here. So we'll have quite a bit of electrification conversation going on. First off, I want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the stolen land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land, and we at St Paul's always recognise that. Now, I want to thank you all for coming here today. I think we all recognise that we have an environmental crisis. And there's a bit of a political crisis as well in Australia in relation to global warming. Are the political responses adequate? Are our political leaders leading from the front, or are they leading from behind? I'll leave that for you to decide. But the function of this meeting here today, it arises out of a commitment from the Anglican Church in general in Western Australia, or in the Perth Diocese, and St Paul's in particular, to trying to achieve net zero emissions. The Anglican Diocese of Perth, which covers a big slice of Western Australia. There is another diocese down the southwest, there is another diocese to the north, but the Perth diocese goes all the way out to the Rabbit-Proof Fence and then down to Westminster. So gigantic boomerang shape. And we have a commitment to achieving net zero emissions on our all of our properties by 2035. It's in the near future. It's in the foreseeable future. Now, as part of that, here at St Paul's, we have a committee of parishioners known as the Beacon Group, and we are working on achieving net zero emissions. And that means not just on our church properties, you know, the roofs of the buildings that we've got being covered in solar panels or something like that. No, we're talking about the entire community. We're trying to bring everybody along with this. So it's broader than just the Anglican Church. It's broader than just Christians. It's everybody in the Fremantle community. That's who we're trying to reach. And so we have two speakers with us today. We were hoping to have a third, but I have to give apologies for Jason from Plico. He is drowning in influenza as we speak, and he can't be here today, but I will represent what he was going to say. But we have Peter Newman, who's going to be first, who's Professor of Sustainability at Curtin University, and is a well-known Fremantle personality, associated with saving I'm now using no introduction.
I'm in the way. I have to stand here unless I can think of something clever to do.
No, you're okay. I stand there, it's okay.
I
Sit down and then you'll be up.
How's that?
Perfect.
Do you want to chair?
No, I'm not. No, you can't turn the screen. Very careful. Sorry. It probably didn't take account of the light. You can move.
What you wanted to share.
No, I don't. Thank you for being here. Right, let's start. I'm the next Rio councillor, and now in the Beacon Group at St Paul. This is what organised this. And I also would like to say a recognition of the Noongar people who've been here for 60,000 years. And in that period, 60,000 years goes way back from that line. And this is the temperature, the average temperature of the world. This is the Ice Age period back here. They lived through that. And in the last 10,000 years, the average temperature of the world, it's taken very scientifically, has been within a bar of 1 degree up and down. It's very small, the changes that have occurred in 10,000 years. And this is the period when we created cities and agriculture. Now, the Noongar people existed all through there. They could probably tell us a few things about how to survive the next 60 years. Because that's the critical period we are now facing, because this is what's happened. It's gone what out of that. It's called the safe operating space. That 1 degree area is what we know works for agriculture and for cities. Some cities are being abandoned or being thought to be abandoned because the temperature is so high now, it's just ridiculous for them to live there. So this is the kind of world we are facing. How are we going to get out of that? Pretty dramatic our period in time. And that's what I want to talk about. So how can we make rapid change that reverses this? And that's what the IPCC has been all about. But can cities do this? Because this is when most of the problems arise. The city of Paris has an action plan, a net zero plan. White Gum Valley, which we're going to hear from Roy Lewison, who's got Electrify White Gum Valley now that he's helping to run, and you're going to find out what's happening there. But this is a project that we did in White Gum Valley where we electrified all of this with Development WA, the state government development agency. They put no gas in there, and that is one of the first in the world, probably the first in the world, to be a net zero development. 10 years ago that happened, and now we're doing a whole lot more of them. And just a few months ago, Curtin, not John Curtin University, but the seat of Curtin, run by Kate Chaney, did their own net zero pathway. So that's an example of a whole area being starting to think about how they can work together to solve the net zero issue. A bottom-up approach. Don't wait for the state government, certainly don't wait for the federal government or for the United Nations. Get on with it. And that's what they're doing in the western suburbs. So why can't we do this in Rio? Can't play football, so we might as well do something else. So
We have a follow-on project to Curtin, right?
yeah,
Electrify Curtin.
Electrify good. Right, that's what was being mentioned. Okay, that's great. You can tell us about that. So when I did a series of talks, it was just before COVID struck, and then it was very relevant because we had an apocalypse, didn't we? But hope in a time of apocalypse is what it's about, and that was done through some talks here. And it's very similar to this book, Collapse, which is by Jared Diamond, in which he shows that people choose their future. And if you don't choose that future, you can collapse. And he's got so many examples of cities that have collapsed because they chose not to change. So it's a choice. Now, the problem is this, the world's beginning to see global warming. You don't have to theoretically say anything about it. I've got this, here it is here. I won't even pick it up. That's what we worked on in the IPCC over the last 5 years. Huge scientific document, it's impossible to read. But it's sort of trying to get everyone to see what it's all about. But we only just have to be alive and watch the television news and see the extraordinary changes that happen. So May was the hottest month in the world, after the hottest year on record. The average extreme heat days per year, which means over 45 degrees, increased by 26. That's the average across the world. 26 extra days over 45. Ecuador had 180. How can we put up with that? But I don't want to cause despair. There's enough of that. It is still possible to turn off the fossil fuels causing this heat and keep within the 1.5, that range, by 2050. As long as we get to 50% by 2030 is what's needed. And as soon as we do that, global cooling begins. So we can do a rapid change. It's not that it's going to linger for the next 50 years. Once we get rid of those fossil fuels. So the clean guys and the dirty guys. This is the extraordinary time we're living in. Look at this rise in wind generation, solar generation, annual EV sales, annual battery storage sales. So rapid. And batteries, for example, they're coming down in costs, but they're also, the quality is rising, so they're getting more per whatever it is they do, the watt hour per kilogram. And global growth in electric vehicles, we see that happening in every city. So what this is all now being called are S-curves, super exponential growth. Remember when we used to be told to be scared about exponential growth? Because it was all the nasty things were getting out of control. Now all the good things are growing exponentially, but not just exponential, which is slowly going up like this. It's going out of the scale. Before you know it, doubled and then doubled again. So that's the process we're in now. And what it means is, as solar and wind increase, and this is the trend it's on, and we electrify, because we've got to be able to use that, electrify, that's the trend we're on. The trend is the emissions will collapse. That's the good news. Now, if we really want to, we can stop that, but it's very hard. It's really setting in. The marketplace is doing this mostly. As you know, governments are a bit slow. So we are poised with heat pumps going up, electric vehicles, electric trucks, digitally enabled automated devices, which is all kinds of smart stuff that is used to help integrate this. So we've got examples. Now net zero home for Josh's house, Josh Byrne, who works with us at Perth. He's done this over the last 20 years, and he developed a net zero home that it's all fully automated and fully studied. So it's got fully electrified induction cooktop, heat pump, electric vehicle, all linked together, works brilliantly, and it costs less than any other way of running a household. That's the big breakthrough he's able to show. And all of that's on his website, joshshouse.com.au. And he's got the solar generation and storage to go with it. So, what's the bad guys here? This is our street in Fremantle, which recently had an upgrade of its gas supply for the next 100 years. We really need that, don't we? We need 100 years to mention the other natural gas. It's not clean natural gas anymore. It is dirty. And you can adapt your home so you don't need it. You can cut it off. We did that. And we told that we don't need gas anymore. So they cut it off when they were doing this, and then put a big concrete lump there with a big sign on it, gas main here, just to show who's the boss in the street. But we've got the solar and all the devices. We don't have a battery. We're thinking of using fleet up actually, so. But this is the problem. The gas companies and the oil companies, they are desperate. They want to expand through to 2050 and beyond. They want to go, they're still expanding in 2070. That's way beyond the time when the world needs to have got rid of them totally. And the reality is, they don't have enough. The market is collapsing. And Japan, for example, who we keep saying we've got to make enough for Japan, Korea, Taiwan, they don't need it. This article shows that energy demand in Japan has dropped by 25% in this period, 2014 to 2015. So it's already phasing out. They're finding they can do without it. And that's the case everywhere. But they keep saying that it's needed, it's necessary, but they leak a lot of gas around the world, and it's being discovered now. We'll set up a group called Climate Trace that has a lot of money, and they can check anywhere in the world, any square metre of space, and measure the leaking methane, even on your house, if it's, you leave the gas on. This is science now showing that we really have to watch what we're doing, and they're trying to get away with it. So what can we do to help hasten the net zero? This is our project, and there's a small book here about this, but it's called Pathways to Net Zero Precincts, and it's about how solar and batteries and electric vehicles can be integrated and create different kinds of precincts, whether it's industrial ones or ones with residents or central cities. And we've got projects all across Australia. The big federal grant based in Curtin that Josh Byrne and I are running. So Pathways to Net Zero Precinct. And if you go out to Curtin, this new complex, it's called the Curtin Exchange Precinct. Lots of buildings, very popular spot. All the students love to go there. Beautifully built with lots of water and water sensitive design and trees and so on. And it is net zero. The whole thing was done that way. Not because Curtin would do it, Curtin was happy to do it, but they contracted it out to a group of 5 guys who wanted to demonstrate how easy it was to do. So we're starting to see that happen, and it's going to spread very quickly. Now, White Gum Valley is here, and this is something I've been working on for some time. The trackless tram, Sterling thought they owned it, but it actually is shifting now to see how Fremantle would use the trackless tram, coming down South Street, and then going into the city and out through here and back out again. That route is what we're going to be studying in this project, because there's a whole lot of new developments being developed. It's called Knutsford, and the development WA and Western Power are closely involved in this project. So they want to see how we can integrate transport, housing, and solar, and all of the bits and pieces that go with powering that area, and to show that you can create a net zero new development. So that's the kind of thing that's happening, and it is definitely an important stage. But we're also looking to see how we could spread this down the whole corridor. All councils, for example, down the corridor want to do their bit. East Fremantle's got an Electrify group. Fremantle Future Redevelopment, which is the port, supposed to be 10,000 new residences going in there on the North Fremantle side. They want to be net zero. They've just declared that. The new port in Kwinana wants to be net zero. All the Kwinana industries, 200 of them, have said they want to be net zero. They want to be able to export their products and say they are a premium product because they are net zero. That's the new world that's emerging. and the marine, shipbuilding and defence areas also want to be net zero. They all need to help finance their exports. So it's time to electrify Fremantle. We need to lead in this, and how? Well, firstly, our net zero precincts project will help precinct by precinct. And Electrify WGB is underway. It's going to be able to show how communities can do things by themselves. And that's what Roy's going to tell us about. And then businesses like Plico are setting up. Plico started in Dunsborough. It's now right across Australia. You'll see the ads and you'll be ashamed. They're horrible.
Anybody tell me?
They are horrible. But they're meant to be clever and stuff, but there's a guy bouncing around in a great big sun. Oh, anyway, but they have got an amazing way of doing it. They lease it out, they set it all up for you and they run it. So that's what we're going to look at in a moment. But before that, Roy, you're on. Unless you've got a quick question for me while we're setting up, Roy.
I can do a bit of an introduction of Roy. It's very interesting in that presentation, Peter showed the WGB Eco Village development that happened 10 years ago. I lived there. Roy was part of the community that agitated for that creation. When the land came up for redevelopment with Development WA, the local community started fighting for sustainability in that development. And people like Peter Newman and Josh Byrne and others made it happen. Roy has he has some runs on the wall. So and his latest piece of agitation is he's organising and leading the Electrify the Valley. So Roy.
Thanks, Graham. Hello. I'd also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land of being Grad Woodchuck, people of the Grad Woodchuck area, and pay my respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. As introduced, my name is Roy Lewison, and I'm one of the co-conveners for Electrify the Valley. Electrify the Valley is a community-run, non-profit organisation that is out to electrify the Waikato. That's simple. By the way, I should say, you've just heard from one of the great brains on the planet. Recently, a few months back, Sol Griffith, who is involved with Rewiring Australia, came and gave a fantastic talk in Perth, and I also had a talk at that, and he was talking about all these rock stars. Peter is a rock star, and then when I got up to say, I said, you know, Sol and these other people are all rock stars, you're just about to hear from the drunken road. So this talk will be very much nuts and bolts. I don't talk about any theory, I'm just talking experience. So I work on a ship, so I call it simple sail talk. I'll try and get the swearing to a minimum, but that's how I run. Okay? So it'll be very, very basic. Peter spoke, now hold on. Peter spoke about a whole lot of things that are causing climate change and did a superb job of communicating the global situation. What I hope to communicate is what you can do as an individual, okay? What you can do as a community, and what you can do as an individual, what you can do as a household, okay? And they're the three groups that I want to cover. It's all very much, as I said, nuts and bolts stuff, so I'll try and keep it. Well, I learned a professor at Murdoch that for your average Joe Blow, and that's Joseph and Joanne, you can usually remember three things at once. So I tend to give a talk in groups of three. Okay, so most of the examples I've got are in groups of three. These are the contributing factors, the three contributing factors I see to climate change. The first one is, as mentioned before, there's a lack of political will. And it's a lack of political will to change pretty much anything. And what I've learned from my brief time on this planet is that at the moment, politicians will do anything that's going to get them votes, and that's about the they have a stranglehold on our capitalist society, and that's how it works. And at the moment, that doesn't look like changing. The second one is we have defined space on the planet, so we're not growing any more land. Apart from the small amount of land that Singapore is making and the occasional solidified lava flow, I haven't done the figures, but I reckon all that's been counteracted by the amount of erosion that's happening, right? So we're kind of losing land. The interesting thing about that defined space on the planet, though, is that it also includes the defined volume of the atmosphere, which, by the way, is very, very small. Okay, people have this notion that the atmosphere extends into space. It does not. Okay, Al Gore in his film Inconvenient Truth got a basketball and wrapped a sheet of cellophane around it. That's about the thickness of the atmosphere. Okay, it is tiny. It is so tiny that when we put all this heat in, and when it traps the heat in, it's very, very effective. That's why the temperatures are going up. And finally, this finite volume is combined with an ever-increasing human population. So that, as one point, is also another reason for climate change. And thirdly, it's this one word, carbonisation. And this is what I'm going to talk about today, okay? About how we can decarbonise. And pretty much anything you can do to decarbonise is going down what Peter's been saying about this is the way we can affect some change in climate change. So let's talk about individuals. Pretty much the best thing you can do to decarbonise is view everything you do, every action you take, everything you think in terms of the decarbonisation lens. So put on a set of glasses. In the early days when deep ecology and the whole green movement started, people used to say, put on a set of glasses and think of everything in terms of green, right? Now you need to think of everything in terms of what carbon you're producing, how can you reduce that carbon, and how we as a society can also reduce that carbon, okay? So for example, rather than flying to Sydney for business, maybe consider a Zoom call. And if you do fly, there are serious, reliable and reputable carbon offset organisations that actually plant trees, right? Now that may seem like it's a last resort, but if we had everyone who was flying contributed to that and planting serious trees, that would be a major, major improvement, okay? So it is possible. The other thing is small things, and I'll show you why this is so important in a minute, but using your bicycle, electric bicycle. I've got a doctrine now where if anything, anywhere I need to go is within 12 kilometres of where I live, right, providing it's not raining, I will use my electric bicycle as opposed to my electric vehicle. Okay, electric bicycles are so much more efficient than electric vehicles. Okay, in terms of the amount of charging. So, right, this is point one for individuals. So this is what you can do. One of the biggest problems with electrification are the myths. Okay, so every time you hear something, you'll hear it on the net, you'll hear it on the radio, you'll hear it on the news. Don't take it for granted. You need to go out and you need to do your own research. Okay. Unfortunately, with the information era, there's also a misinformation era. And for every, I can show you, for every argument I can show you on the net, there's always the other side of the coin. You need to find out what the real facts are. Okay. And that can sometimes be difficult. That's the first thing. So we can't rely on misinformation and the lies that surround the new technologies, because these new technologies are what are going to help us to fight the adverse effects of climate change. And finally, you as an individual, these are all individual things you can do. As an individual, okay, you need to engage with other people. We need to start having these conversations, right? You need to have them with your children, okay? I've been having this conversation, an EV conversation with my son. He's 29 years old. About to start a family, he has to upgrade his car. He can't see the sense in buying an EV. So what I've done is come up with a finance program for him, where what he pays per week is less than what he pays in fuel. That's also come from $10,000 grant from mum and dad, but it's the only way I can get him to buy an electric vehicle, right? And he's going to buy an electric vehicle based on that. Okay, it's going to cost him $65 a week, which is more than what he's spending on fuel at the moment, and plus our grant. Right, until it's got right. So you need to interact. Okay, you can't be offensive. We are way past that. Peter had that lovely graph of, I think it was one's coming down and one's going up. And I noticed that the contact point for that was way back in 2002.
Yeah.
Okay, we do not have the time. We do not have the time. We had 180 days in Ecuador, 45 degrees plus. This is it. It's not happening in 10 times, it's happening right now. So we just don't have the time for it. This is a graph from Sol Griffith, from Rewriting Australia. And I'm only going to show you 2 of his slides today. And this is one of the most important ones. In your household, that is what that transport vehicle fuels is what's producing 60–65% of your car. Okay? If you take nothing away from this today, that's where your record should be. If you put space heating, water heating, cooking, space cooling, and everything else all together, right, you may get 25%. Vehicles are where you need to be. Okay, and I'll show you later why this can be. I've already told you a little bit about it, but I can tell you why everyone in this room financially should be able to go out, okay, and purchase an electric vehicle, because there's lots of plans out there, there's lots of assistance, and if you work it on a 5-year plan, okay, I'll talk about that later, but just cement that graph into your head, okay. This is all the low-hanging fruit. This is all pretty easy to do. This is more difficult, but if you know how to do it, this is also. The other thing to remember is that none of these things happen unless we have early adopters. Okay? We have the largest percentage of people with rooftop solar in the world in WA. Right? WA and Queensland are the 2 have more rooftop solar on the roof than anyone else on the planet per capita. Okay? That only happened because we had early adopters. The last 50% got there purely based on money. They didn't care. They were only doing it for money. So the fact you're all here today, you are all early adopters by definition. Okay? So you need to think about this really carefully. That's the big one. This is a Mercedes CX-3. This is a vehicle that my sister bought. She was very excited. She phoned me up and said, just new first in car she's ever bought. It had all the bling, diesel, turbo, a nice red 5-door small SUV, 17-inch wheels, lovely car. In the same week, I bought this red 5-door hatch SUV, 17-inch wheels, gorgeous. Only difference is that this is an EV. Okay? So we're having this conversation, and I said to my sister, how much did your Mazda cost? And she said, that. And 2 seconds later, she said, how much did your EV cost? And I said, that. And there was just this 10-second gap. And I could hear the cogs turning in the head. And she came out on the phone, she goes, if only I'd known. If only I'd known. So one of the big things we've done in Waikam Valley, when we had our launch, the Electrify Fremantle, I said those words, if only I'd known. I never wanted to hear them again in Waikam Valley. So we needed to put out an information sharing platform. So if you were going to change out your water heater, your cooktop, your EV, bicycle lever, you just go to one spot, it's going to be all the information on there. So information sharing platforms are absolutely critical. You have to get that information out there. Sol Griffith said that in the next 10 years, there's going to be 6 times when you're going to make a critical decision about one of these things. Your hot water is going to break down. Okay, your hot water system could break down. Your gas cooktop could break down. Your car got written off. A friend of ours recently had been thinking about buying a car. Their car got written off, and he was panicking. I said, "This could be a silver lining." Sure enough, it was. Okay, so yeah.
Is that the energy?
Yeah, that's energy. Yeah. The interesting thing, and I'll just mention this as an aside, I have a partner, and she is technophobic, right? She hates technology, right? I don't know if you've ever driven or been inside a Tesla, but it's pretty much like driving a spaceship, right? And it became very obvious to me very quickly that my wife could not drive a Tesla. It was just going to be an impossible thing, okay? There's a car, the great thing about this car is that it's identical to the non-EV MG. Absolutely identical. The only 2 differences is we get 2 different screens on the speedo. And rather than a T-bar automatic shift, we get a knob. That's it. Right? So if Joanne can drive an EV, anyone can drive. And if she was here, she would back me up on it. Okay? I'm not going to drive it at all. So that's why we chose this car. Okay, there's another car at the moment, an EV, that I reckon is really, really good value for money, and I'll show you some figures on it later. And that's halfway between this and the Tesla. Okay, you still have a screen, but all the controls are still on the steering wheel, and they're quite easy to drive. I reckon Joanne might be ready to make that. I'm working. All right. Oh, you'll also notice. I'll just go back. Yeah, just go back a fraction. So with this one, we have the carbonisation. You'll also notice here that there's no mention at all in there about technology, right? And the reason for that, so these are things individuals can do, but we haven't put about adoption of technology because we've had that for about the last 15 to 20 years. We've had that technology, okay? So, yeah, I find it really interesting that, I was talking to someone the other day and they said, the only thing Scott Morrison ever got right was the fact he said that technology is going to get us out of this thing, out of this crisis. The only problem that he had with what he said was he thought it's all going to happen in the future. Right? The technology we needed has been around for 15 to 20 years. So, yeah, apart from that, that's about all we've got. Right. So this is another quote from Sol Griffith. And it's pretty simple. It says, if you want to stop oil and gas companies, stop buying the product. Stop buying the product. Well done. Okay. Okay. Just imagine, and it is completely imaginary because it probably won't happen, but just imagine if everyone stopped buying petrol and gas tomorrow. How long do you reckon the oil and gas companies? Right? And it lasts half a 6 months. Yeah. So this is very, very short, but absolutely brilliant. So, what can we do as an individual, as a household, and as a community? Simplest way to decarbonise is electrify everything. Quite frankly, if we had 4 wind turbines off Gauge Roads, we could run all of Fremantle plus all the businesses in Fremantle. 4 wind turbines. That's all it's going to take. Okay, each turbine runs about 4,000 houses. Okay, so we do it on 60.
Have you had any actual opposition to that? Oh, having wind turbines.
Yes, in fact,
Organised stuff.
yeah, sure. There's been a group who tried to put in wind turbines on North Fremantle several years ago, and came out with all sorts of things. The best thing to have a look at wind turbines is have a look at last week's book. It was all about wind turbines and all about the on the ABC on Ireland. So that's summarising. Beautiful, great program. So let's have a look. So as an individual, okay, the first thing is that you can't be a fence sitter. Okay, you can't have the attitude of I'll wait and see what happens. All right, as I said before, we just don't have time for it. The second thing is that we are in a climate emergency, so you need to act now and not next year. It's happening right now and happening for the last 10 years. And don't ever say I don't know, because the information is there. Okay, everything you need to electrify your whole life is there. It's all available. It's been available for a long time. Okay, so rather than say I don't know, okay, you need to find out. And I'm going to tell you a few things. Just before I get on to those things, when we did electrify the valley in November, I put these 3 things up, and I just thought I'd re-add them now. So, first of all, electrification of our community is inevitable. Okay, think about. I have a video that's probably going to be a bit hard to put up. Saw this great video. If you go at home and just Google Nissan Leaf commercial, they had a video where every single electrical appliance they went to use in the house and the office, they started an electric motor to run it. So to run the computer, they started this internal combustion engine to run it. And it's quite funny. If you think of the number of appliances at the moment you're running electricity, right? It's actually the other way around. So the only ones we're not running electricity in your household and transport, and gas cooktop, probably, possibly your hot water system and your internal space heating, plus a vehicle, right? There's not a lot, okay? All your computers run on electricity, your fridge, no one's running a gas fridge anymore. No one's running a gas washing machine anymore, right? So this electrification is pretty much in everything. As Peter mentioned, the electrification is going to come from the ground community up and not from the top from the government. Okay, the government are not leading on this at all, they're just following. And as a community, we already have runs on board. And by that, I'm saying that in terms of rooftop solar, just a couple of figures for you. As I mentioned before, the last 50% of the population that came on board for rooftop solar came on board purely based on dollars. Last summer in Perth, in the middle of the day, 82% of electricity on the Perth grid came from rooftop solar. 82%. By the fourth quarter in 2025, South Australia goes 100% renewable. Okay. You people, all of us at the moment, are in a fantastic time because you can make a difference. We are making it, right? You've already done it. You've already got solar on the roof. You're part of this transition already. And electrification it just hops on the rooftop solar and keeps going. You just electrify everything, and then you know it's not difficult. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. As I said, with your household, it gets split up into a dwelling and into transport. All right. These are 3 areas in your dwelling. These are the 3 areas of your transport. Right. Now, Peter, can I swap over to that other thing? I'll just walk over with them. Okay. We've started a manual in Waikato. Okay. And the manual is about these things. So with the cooking, okay, most people, I say most people, I think it's above 80%. Most people haven't let it go. Most people haven't let it go into the gas cooktop. That's been pretty much the standard. So we're really looking at gas cooktops. Electric ovens have been around for a long time. They're very good, they're very efficient, and everyone knows about electric ovens. Induction cooktops. Okay. You can buy an induction cooktop for $2,500, $3,000, or you can buy one for $50. Aldi's selling for $50. Okay. I read an article in Choice the other day, and a woman said, if you give me a $325 air fryer and a $50 induction cooktop, I'll cook anything. She's a professional chef. She said, I can cook anything you want me to cook on those 2 appliances for $375.
What about microwave?
Microwaves are great. Because you use them for such short periods of time, they're fine. The other thing about microwaves is that now they're combining microwaves with an oven as well. So you can do a microwave and an oven, and they're also very efficient. The thing with the microwave is you don't have the microwave on for an hour, right? Okay, typically. So even though efficiently it's not, it's probably the best appliance you've got in your house, it's still very good, for what. So in terms of cooking, we're really talking about the induction cooktop, right? The great thing about and be really clear, there's a difference between an electrical cooktop and an induction cooktop. Okay? Electrical cooktop, you might remember, I remember when I was a child, electrical cooktop, you had these red rings used to heat up. Okay. Well, all they've done now, they've put a sheet of glass over. Okay, so you still get the red rings underneath, and it's still just electricity going through there. And they make the electrical circuit so constricted that this thing overheats. Okay, so even though it's not that efficient, it's still running electricity. Okay, the induction cooktop works on a completely different principle. It works on the principle that you run an electrical circuit that creates a magnetic field, electromagnetic field, and that creates heat, right? But it only creates heat when you have a magnetic surface from your pan onto it. So you take the pot off, put your hand on the cooktop, it's cold. You put the pot back on, and the heat's going to transfer into the pot. The great figure that you need to remember about gas and induction is that with gas, 20% of the heat ends up in the pot, 80% is wasted. With induction, it's exactly the opposite. 80% ends up in the pot, 20%. Okay, so you're 4 times better off. Induction cooktops are 12 times more efficient than a gas cooktop. Okay, for the energy coming out.
That's good, it's very dangerous.
Also, they're that's
The
right.
fires with the,
Absolutely. Back in the 2000s, it was kind of West End, they got rid of all gas in all their metropolises because it was just too much of a thing. If you look on Salt River's website, the other problem you've got with gas is that when you start it up, the amount of butane and other nasties that get released into the house is terrible. The only way he could ever get his partner to change over to an induction cooktop was he did a little study and he said, we're poisoning our children. As soon as he said that, she changed over. Mind you, he also got his in-laws to buy her a whole new set of sauces. So the combination of the two convinced her. But if you really go into it, there's probably another 4 or 5 really good reasons to go into it. But the reason I like most of it is how it goes. You just wipe them down, right? You don't have stuff getting the elements and all that sort of stuff. It's really absolutely. All right, cool. Cool. They're actually a little bit cheaper than, than the really expensive normal one. You can always tell them because they're normally starting to feel you've got thick base. Okay, I picked up a set at the Moore River jumble sale. I had once a year, and someone had. Sorry, I'm not going to there was this box of all these cans, and I could see they were all induction. I said, how much are those? Honestly, there must have been $1,000 worth of really good cooktops in them, right? So I took them, I had them polished at the polisher, he charged me $80. And now I've got the best array of stuff, because what someone had done is they had used these pans on a normal gas stove. And what had happened is that rather than the heat going into the base at the bottom, it had gone up the side and on the handle, and you couldn't pick it up. So you could only technically, unless you had an insulated handle, you could only put it on an induction cooktop. So I got this amazing set, right? Yeah, really good value. Anyway, hot water. Obviously, electricity, just electrical hot water systems have been the worst. Electric storage is definitely the worst, right? For a long time, gas instantaneous was very, very, very efficient. And to have a new gas instantaneous installed in your house at the moment is about $1,700 to $1,800. Okay. The electrical equivalent to change over is what they call a heat pump. Okay. Imagine your fridge. Okay, you probably don't know how the refrigeration cycle works. All right. But basically what happens is you compress the gas and then you expand it. And when you expand it, that takes all the heat out of the refrigerator. So what they do is they just reverse that cycle. Okay? So when you reverse the cycle, you're now putting heat into something. Okay? So you just need to think of a heat pump as it's almost an air conditioner in reverse. Okay? We built 3 very energy efficient units up in Waikato Valley. We put heat pumps in a lot of them. $1,650 with a rebate. So they're actually the cheapest form of hot water you can buy now. And that was installed. Okay, the ones we got was a 200 litre, it's a 250 litre. The great thing about them is they're really smart. So you can set them up so they only charge during in the middle of the day when you're getting power. You can set them to the right temperature. They can only come on at a certain time. They're incredibly smart. Much smarter than I am. I had to get the plumber to program them. But they are really smart. Once you get them set up, they're brilliant and they're lock and lead. One of the big problems with these was that people thought they were too noisy. The ones we've installed up there are the quietest on the market with about 42 decibels, which is quite a new air conditioner. Okay, so these are a no-brainer. This is probably the lowest hanging fruit. If your gas unit fails, right, you're going to have water coming in, you're going to have water going out, and you'll have an electrical plug somewhere. That's all you need for a heat pump. It's almost a swap, straight to straight, and it's cheap. Okay, so this is really a complete no-brainer. This one's also a bit of a no-brainer because a lot of people already have air conditioning. Okay, and I'm not either evaporative or the refrigerative type, right? Now when you have refrigerative air conditioning, it's also known as dual cycle, right? And what it can do heating it can do cooling. Right? So if it already does cooling, why would you get one of these? And you've probably already got one for cooling. It does heating as well, right? In the old days, your air conditioning units used to be the worst unit you had in the house. You turn it on, the whole house would brown out. It was really noisy, you had dripping, the whole suburb would go a little bit dim when you started up. They were atrocious, right? Absolutely appalling. Now, they are the most efficient appliance you have in the house. There's a thing called COP, coefficient of performance. Ultimate coefficient of performance, so 1 unit in, 1 unit out is 6.0. Okay? Your air conditioners, the new air conditioners are now running at 5.85 to 5.9. Right? They heat, they cool, they dehumidify, they rehumidify, they filter. They're the best option you can possibly get. Right? And they keep coming down in price. We did a whole house, when we did the heating and the cooling, the whole house, $1,800. Right? And that was a really, really good brand. So this is not expensive, right? I would strongly urge not to do ducting. Okay? Just put the units where you need them. The one in the bedroom, and one in the lounge room, that's about all you need. Okay? Particularly if your house is well set up. So this is probably the easiest. This is the next. This one, remember that graph I showed you the vehicles and how much CO2 put on or how much carbon put on? And cooking, hot water and space heating are all down the side. They're all quite small. So in terms of low hanging fruit, hot water, space heating and then cooking. Okay?
All right, let's talk about Facebook. We've already done that, and we need to find out about
Right, communities.
like our valley,
Right.
and how we can learn from it to electrify the whole
All right.
government. Well,
Here you go. This is it. So in terms of the community, so you've done your house stuff, right? You've got your individual stuff, you've done your household stuff, now the community stuff. So community stuff is start a local group. Okay, and you've already pretty much done that already. Okay, the groups here. When we started Electrify the Valley, Brad Pettit and I, probably most of you know Brad, an MP from the state government, he was talking to me and he said, I think we just need to start. I looked at it and I thought, but Brad, I'm really enjoying this, the copying the pontification and the discussion. We really need to do something. So the recipe for starting a local group, and we've come up with this a few times, you need 3 people, you need a lot of coffee, and you need to talk a lot. Right? At the end of it, someone's going to come up with comment, how about we do something? Eventually, right? You're all here now, you're having a conversation, you've probably had a coffee, so you're probably already up and going. This is interesting for us. So there's Electrify the Valley, there's Electrify 6158, which is in Fremantle, East Fremantle. There's a couple of other groups around, and what we'd like to do is form everyone into a regional group. And that's what Peter was kind of alluding to before, about we get all the little groups together. Because at the moment, we're struggling bringing a lot of pressure onto the city of Fremantle. And as a group, if we've got 6 or 7 groups in a regional group, then obviously things start to happen. This is probably one of the most important things, and that's to join up with Rewiring Australia. Okay? We decided to start our local group 3 weeks before Rewiring Australia started a community partnership program, right? They put out this thing that said, we're going to choose 10 groups. They had 75 applications. I was on a Zoom call the other night. We had 120 electrified groups around Australia on this one Zoom call. It's already there. It's already happened, okay? So fortunately, out of 75, we managed to get a Guernsey. And then we found out later that it wasn't that great because they had to choose 2 in WA and they only had 2 applicants. But that was beside the point. Our timing was impeccable. We've since had a launch, which was very successful. We've since become incorporated. We've run a couple of meetings locally. And the other big thing for you guys, which we'd love you to come along to, on the 28th of July, at Sullivan Hall, we've got a big expo. So we'll be demonstrating all those 3 things in the household. We've got electric vehicles there, you can test drive. There'll be electric bicycles there and everything. So I'll leave that date with these guys and take a reminder, but please come along to them, that'll be huge. All right. So even though we probably won't be able to become part of this community partnership, you need to get in touch with Rewiring Australia. They were open last year. They have so many resources. available that you won't believe. Okay, incredible resources, right? They have this huge information sharing platform. Everything you need is on that platform. Everything. And they are doing incredible things. There's a group in Sydney recently that started this high school competition, right? And they had to demonstrate decarbonisation. And they did it through song, through art, they did it through sports teams, they did it through all sorts of things. And this high school actually had a competition within the state of New South Wales, they had 80 high schools or something participating. That's the kind of thing that we need to start happening. And that's when the conversations go back to the family and, you know, stuff really happens. So this is pivotal. Right, so Rewind Australia, absolutely pivotal. Starting off with group, as I said, 3 people, conversation, fucking food. Sooner or later, someone's going to say, how about this stuff? 3 quick stories about how we started and thing. After we had our launch, I went outside and I thought, wow, we need to get this information sharing platform together really, really quickly. Because that's, we don't want people making bad decisions. Right? We're going to make 6 important decisions. We need to have the information. Anyway, I walked outside, literally about 5 minutes after I walked outside, I walked into this young woman and I walked up to her name, Lily. She's now one of our Coke and Beans. She walks up and she said, and I said to her, what do you do, Lily? And she said, I set up information sharing platforms for environmental and community. And I said, welcome to the family. Then we had Ken. Ken's a big, tall Anglo-Indian guy. Comes up to me and goes, hi, I'm Ken Mustafa, and I'm the CEO for WA Alternative Energy. We probably installed more batteries in Western Australia than anybody else. And I said, welcome. And then the most important one was our neighbour. So as I said, we built these 3 units and we had a single woman, she's about 73. She buys this unit. She comes along to the launch. Now, these units are all electrical, they're all highly sustainable, they're all pretty groovy. She comes along to the launch and she's going, look, I know I'm done, you know, I'm all electrified, which we're kind of proud of herself. She bought this unit, even though she hadn't done any work. But anyway, she bought this unit and she said, but I just thought I'd come along anyway. I put up the graph about the cars, about the 65 and 70% of the emissions. And after the meeting, she came up to me and she said, I guess I'm not done. I said, I'm not. In February, she called me up on the phone and says, what type of electric vehicle charger did you install in my unit? And I said, why do you want to know? She goes, because I've just bought an electric vehicle. So she buys an electric vehicle, she brings it home. It turns out it's exactly the same as ours, so I knew all about it. So we go for test drives and I help plug it in and we're all ready to go. And then I said to her, well, I guess now you're done. And she looked at me and she goes, I'm not done until what you know. Now, I don't think I've ever been accosted by an elderly woman who is still protesting about the Vietnam War, and still have a lot of bad LSD in the 60s, right? This woman is promotion. Let me tell you, it was very confronting. So my neighbour is has calmed down now. She loves her vehicle. She's also really technophobic. And she's just loving the fact that she can tell her grandkids that she's all electric and she's not contributing to it. She's very, very grateful about that. So, where to from here? So, individually, do your research, start talking, have conversations, households, electrify your house, electrify transport, and communities, local group, regional group, and access rewiring Australia. Right? Now, that may all sound really simple, and it is. The great thing about all of this is stuff you can do. You're not relying on politicians. You're not relying on anyone else. This is stuff you can do tomorrow. You can do it today. When you leave here, put the glasses on, it starts now. Right? It starts right now. Large part of this community effort is advocacy, i.e. my neighbour. Okay, so even though she's done, you're not done until we're all done. Right? It's a bit like a planet thing. The only one issue, these changes cannot happen in a linear style, right? Or a consecutive pattern. They all must happen simultaneously. So at some stage, you need to be doing this, and doing this all at the same time. We can't wait for the first one to happen before the second one. Yes.
Here's
Okay,
what I did, Scotland,
Can I-
to sell my Woodside shares.
oh, yes.
Would you? Actually,
That's all.
don't sell more.
So you can go along with
You can go along to the ATM as a shareholder.
Yeah, you can be a troublemaker.
So keep 5 or 10 shares, sell the rest, and go along with their meetings. So that's when things change.
53% of the shareholders disagreed with their climate policy at this time.
Yeah, you need to be 54.
Yeah. Look, I said before that, we had scheduled a third speaker for today, a representative of Plico. And I spoke with the guy yesterday and he was very ill, very deep in influenza. And so was his wife and so were his children. And it turned out that just about the entire Plico office was down with the lurgy. However, he provided me with this. If you want information about the services of Plico, and I'll explain it in a minute, use this QR code. And also this will give you access to a special offer, offering anyone who comes along here today, that if you make use of their services, you get an extra $1,000 off their, $1,000 off the cost. The way in which I will try to represent the Plico services correctly here. The way that Plico does their business is they install solar panels and batteries for people effectively on a kind of hire purchase basis. You pay a subscription and they will install the batteries for you, the panels and the batteries and EV chargers for you. And they will link this into what's called a virtual power plant. As Roy said, in summer now, the majority of electricity consumed here in Perth comes off our rooftops. For Western Power, that's a problem because they can't stabilise their network. I won't go into the science of that. It's a problem that they have created for themselves, really, by being so slack in coming on to the transition. However, the way that Plico operates is that they can sell electricity into the grid and cut off the service of electricity into the grid at times that Western Power dictates. And you, as a householder, can get paid for that service. So you don't just consume your electricity, you're contributing to the stabilisation of the electricity network, and you can get paid for that. So the Plico guarantee that you will generate more money for yourself through this service than paying for any electricity bills that you may be paying at the moment. So I just urge you, if you want more information, zap this code and get in contact with them and take advantage of the $1,000 that they're talking about offering people. So I won't go on about the Plico service any more than that. But no, okay. Questions from anyone up the back, starting off? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Because there's evidence of electromagnetic sensitivity behind that. It's really affected by that. Sorry?
So you're talking about electromagnetic sensitivities connected. Yeah, I know, but in connection with, hang on, in connection with induction cookers, are you saying, or in connection with electricity in general?
Just the notion of general electrification across the board, there's more of it in gas.
Yeah.
It's like the body becomes a system.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to make that?
Yeah, sure. So what you're talking about is EMR, electromagnetic radiation. Okay. In terms of EMR, things like a vehicle have a complete shield under the whole bottom of the car. So there's absolutely no EMR in the vehicle at all. All right. Most of the other things you're dealing with, the EMR is so small. I mean, there's more EMR when you hold the phone up to your head, right? Well, it can be, yeah. And it's actually a little device which you can get to go in your phone, it's not that in hardware. But in terms of the cooktop, because it's all going into the cooking, there's very, very little wastage in that. As I said, there's 80% of that heat's going in. So there's very little wastage in terms of that. I'll give you an example of how, for once I can say that I think the standards around EMR in Australia are quite good. And what reason I say that is I've just put a deposit on an electric motorcycle. And the thing that's holding them up is their EMR, right? There's too much EMR coming off this motorcycle. So they've got to go back to the drawing board and work out how they can do it. So within Australia, I know there's a lot of people who are extra sensitive to it, but as a general rule, and I can't speak general, as a general rule, the standards we have here are probably some of the highest in the world. You know.
Hello, I was an early up, I with the solar, and now solar panels are as effective.
So
So,
your panel,
yeah,
that's right.
so what to do, and there's ways. So
Yeah.
what to do about that?
Yeah, so, in terms of the solar panels themselves, most of the solar panels, about 60% of it is aluminium, right? So that's easily recyclable, right? About 35% is silica. Okay, that's also highly recyclable. Australia, to its credit, is probably one of the best recyclable solar panels. It's certainly the only country in the world that can now recycle lithium batteries. So in terms of recycling, I can't think of someone you could drop them off now, other than the electrical waste. Sorry, you have it?
There's no way to call them and recycle.
Great, thanks, Sam.
They're only involved, yeah. So if they're still functioning,
Yeah,
when you make a decision to put the financing to.
I would say when you, because solar panels are so cheap, I mean, you can get 6 kilowatts for $2,000. Right, so it does that very long. The payback on solar panels at the moment, in terms of its embodied energy, is about 18 months. It used to be 8 years when we first put them in. Right, so it's very, very quick now. I would say after your panels get to about 2/3 efficiency, that kind of standard deviation, 68%, that's the time to maybe think about moving on.
We made a decision to replace solar panels.
Yeah.
When we decided to get a battery.
Yeah.
And just do it all first at the same.
Yeah, smart.
Upgrade.
Yeah, right. Look, a really big tip on this whole thing. I didn't touch on batteries and panels and EV charge and that sort of stuff because you know, it's kind of down the line. But one thing I have learned very, very clearly is be very, very careful when you get one contractor to install your solar panel, one contractor to install your battery, one contractor to install your EV charger. Because it ends up like a Telstra NBN thing. They both point fingers at the other person. What I've been very clear about is I haven't worried so much about the money that I've had one solar electrician install the order. I found an independent guy, and there's 2 of them in Fremantle. I'm more than happy to hand out their names. I've handed his name to about 50 customers. He's both of them incredibly reliable, but they're not selling a particular solar panel. Okay, they will look at your job, they will see what's required. They're totally independent and they say, I think this is the best panel for this job. But the great thing about it is that this guy's name is John Cook, he runs independent. If I have any problem, and quite frankly, I haven't had any problems because John's done the whole lot. If I have any problems with anything, I get John around and he sorts it out. And a lot of these solar companies have been fly by night. Okay, they're here and 5 years down the track, they're not there. So when you go back with the problems, you've got it. Man shaking his head here. Yeah, I'm sure you've got a story about it.
I've had 2 systems put in, and they're by companies that they're very quick to sell something to you, but you call up with a problem, so they don't want to know.
No, exactly. That's why if you find a solar electrician, right, they're installing a lot. So we built 3 units plus our house next door. We built them all. We've had John do the lot. We've had no issues with any electrical stuff installed. So that's why we really seriously think about that as opposed to saying, oh, this looks really nice and cheap.
Paul, that's being.
Yeah, my question, thanks for the 2 talks. Okay. My question is about vehicle to grid.
Yeah.
Where you stand with that.
Yeah.
My understanding was only the missing leak would allow you to plug in your vehicle to actually power the house. Batteries, obviously, the vehicles are much bigger than just the power walls that some of us have.
Yeah.
What where you stand on that.
Sure, right.
You better explain the vehicle.
Yeah. What this gentleman's talking about is that your average, the largest home batteries we have are about 16 kilowatt hours. Okay, 16, maybe 20, right? Our tiny little EV, right, very, very small, only has a 280k range around town, has a 45 kilowatt hour battery. Tesla are 80 kilowatt hour battery, right? So it's very, very possible to run your house from the vehicle because the batteries are so large, okay, in the vehicles, all right? The other thing to remember about batteries is you're only using the battery, or you should only be using the battery to power your house overnight. That's the big key, right? During the day, you've got solar panels and you're making a fair bit of electricity, right? Should be using that to do your washing, do your dishes, use all that sort of stuff, charge your car. Then overnight, you don't need very much. Have TV running, possibly lights, maybe a little bit of heating, very small. So batteries are supposed to run you through the night so you don't have to pull off. Okay? Right. What this gentleman's talking about is you drive your vehicle home and you actually plug your house into your vehicle. So you don't need to buy a home battery. Okay? Now, we're very fortunate in Whitehall because we have an ex-lawyer called Daphne. And Daphne, and Daphne and her partner Regan are the very first people to apply for vehicle to house in Western Australia. Now they know they're the first people to apply because when they filled in the Western Power form, there were all these mistakes. And when they took it back to Western Power, they said, oh yeah. And Daphne said, how come so many mistakes? And they said, because you're the first person who's ever filled in this form. Now, Daphne's a lawyer and she's a bit of a pitbull terrier. When she gets hold of something, there is no letting go, right? She gave a presentation at one of our meetings up at Southern Hall in the Valley, and we're a long way off. We're still a long way off. We're only a long way off. We have the technology, we do it tomorrow, right? We're a long way off from power, right? In terms of Australia, the very first person who ever got vehicle to grid going was last November in South Australia. Okay, so it's a ways off. And if you are thinking about buying a battery, this is one thing I haven't had time to talk about. In terms of batteries, if I was to give you a talk on batteries now, what I'd say today would be out of date tomorrow. Okay, the technology is changing so far. It's a bit like buying a computer. You walk out the shop, it's outdated, right? There's new batteries on the market. The biggest problem we have with the batteries at the moment is their lithium iron phosphate. Lithium iron phosphate, right, is very hard to control. We have to make lots and lots and lots of little batteries, tiny little ones, and then we have a battery management system. It's the battery management system that causes fires, not the battery themselves. There's a new type of battery coming out for houses based on iridium, and it's an electrolyte battery. It's going to last a lot longer, and eventually it will be a lot cheaper. So in terms of the battery world, things are changing by the day. I'll just give you a small example about charging. You probably know that you can get an induction charger for your phone. Okay, you put your phone on a little plate and it charges. They now have them for cars. You have a plate in the carport, you drive your car in, and the car charges automatically. Right? In Illinois, just outside of Chicago, they've put 2.5 kilometres of that charging in the road. So when you're driving down the road, there's an indicator, a barcode on the windscreen, checks in, the end 2.5 k's, it checks out, and you charge. Right? The technology for charging is phenomenal. It's changing, it's going ballistic. So with batteries, if you can afford it, great, get one. If not, there's a lot of other stuff to work on before you get that.
I'd just like to point for clarity that you talked about Teslas and the big batteries. They won't do the.
No, not yet. So I should have said there's only 2 cars currently in Australia that do vehicle to house, and that's the Nissan Leaf and the Ioniq 5. They're the only 2 cars.
Yeah, but that's changed, just a minute, Mike. Just let me add to that. It's definitely moved on from those 2 people you mentioned.
Yeah.
In Sydney now you can get V2G, and we've got a friend called Stuart who runs the centre in Sydney. He's a professor, comes from Esperance, and he's now a professor over there, and he lives in Sydney, and his house is a place where he can take public transport and occasionally needs a car. got an electric car, he pushed them and they gave him the right, and now it's flowing into it. He makes $200 a week from his car being linked into the system. So vehicle to grid is not just necessarily helping his house. He doesn't need it, he's got lots of solar on the roof, got a battery, but he's got this vehicle and it makes $200 a week for him. So that's the kind of future that's emerging. And I think Western Power is slowly catching up with how to allow this more and more. Now, I want to introduce two people to you who are coming, Maz and Ben. Ben's living with Deb Gwynn in East Fremantle now. Maz arrived yesterday from Melbourne. He's living in our house for the next 6 weeks. They're both doing PhDs on this topic. So we've got some real experts here, and they are working on how rapidly this whole thing is changing and how we can bring it into this Fremantle area. They're going to be working partly on the Beaconsfield Valley area, that Knutsford area, I said. And Ben has got an internship in Western Powers. So he's working at the desk of the person who's in charge of the energy transition. So we kept some secrets from Ben occasionally, but it's a fantastic time because all this bottom-up stuff, this amazing stuff we're hearing from Roy, Western Power is realising now that the world is changing for them and they now need to adjust to all of this power coming up, not the power they need to give to you, but how it's all coming up. And that's going to be a very smart system to do. And nobody else in the world has yet done it. So this is our big chance. So we can show it more and more if we get together and start working out these things. So it's not just a simple task we're doing, isn't it? Aren't we clever? We are going to help show the world what to do. So there's probably a few more questions, but
Look, 3 more questions. Let's have 3 more questions. And then there's something I want to say at the end. So please don't leave. Okay, so we'll go up the back, please.
And evaluation of your domestic appliances, I know what that is still.
so look at your
I
back.
don't understand it, and I need to know how that fits, because the solar system, the photovoltaics are much older and so on.
So that was a question about Plico.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when you interact with Plico, they come to your house and do an audit. Yeah, they work with you on that. Yeah. So over here.
Well, the guy that's far from that.
Oh, there's a lot of passion here, right? Okay.
No. There's one thing with Plico is before I said as an individual, you need to do a lot of research. There's also another 6 organisations out like Plico. Okay, so talk to Plico, but by all means, talk to other groups as well. There's a whole lot of other companies doing the same thing.
Okay.
I wanted to share, about 3 weeks ago or so, the ABC News website had an article about comparing EV SUV with a comparative petrol SUV. And it's very important. There's a series of graphs that show how much is saved and how fast it's saved by using an EV. And it even has a graph particularly about WA and talks about the comparatively dirty grid and how it's still worth doing. It's really worthwhile. The easiest way to find it is just Google EV versus petrol car, ABC News.
Okay, very good.
That's very,
More and more of this information is bubbling up. It's unmistakable.
bottom line is basically after 40,000 kilometres with a net gain
Yes.
to the environment from an EV.
Went to talk and with line, is it a myth? He said if everybody in Britain bought an EV, there would not be enough rare minerals.
It is a myth. I had to address this with the IPCC. It's such a widespread myth. They said to me, you realise, of course, you're pushing for EVs and batteries, that we are going to run out of critical minerals. And even when I was at Sharm el Sheikh with the big COP27, the Saudi Arabians came to the event that we were running and said, oh, you realise, of course, we've got to keep going with oil because you're going to run out of critical minerals. Western Australia has all the critical minerals, and in the last 5 years, we already produced half of the world's lithium from one small mine. Where is it? In 2 hours south. You can drive past that mine in 2 seconds and it's finished. It's a boutique operation. They produce 1 container load of lithium every week. That's half the world's supply of lithium. Up in the north, we have 7-kilometre long iron ore trains trekking across the Pilbara every 5 minutes. Massive. And we're producing half the world's iron ore, but it's so much greater in quantity. Now, no one's talking about that right now. It's total political myth. And the occasional thing comes up with some of the National Party people who spread this myth around on social media and so on. It is very sad that we are reduced to that sort of myth to try and stop this change happening.
So how do we stop Electrify from opening new gas?
Okay, there is a group in Fremantle, Get Off Gas. Well, if you want to find out about them, come and talk to me afterwards. I'll get you directly in contact with them because I just joined them the other day. Now everybody put their name and contact details down at the door when you came in, because the next step after this, of course, is we want to initiate a Electrify Fremantle group. Same as Electrify White Gum Valley. So if it is okay with you folks, I'll use that as a contact list to send you out information about Electrify Fremantle.
Yeah. And we could have our first meeting on the 28th of July at Sullivan Hall in White Gum Valley, which is where all of these things are going to be displayed. So we could actually go there and have an opportunity if you wanted to see it all. Would that be okay? The 28th of July, is that Sunday. After church, we can all go.
Yeah. Okay, one last comment from you.
Yeah, just a very quick comment. We're here from the City of Melbourne, and the
Yes.
City of Melbourne has declared a climate emergency a couple of years ago. And we are in a community that's going to electrify Melbourne. Yeah. So we're meeting and we just got a grant through the City of Melbourne, small grant.
Yes.
But it's about campaigning for that. So we're
Yes.
on the verge of doing that for the City of Melbourne as well.
We'll all join up.
And so-
Okay, we are on the way to changing the world. Thank you very much. Well, yes, I want to thank you all for coming along. Look, it's a big crowd of people, and we are going to make a difference. So thank you all very much for coming along. This was convened by the St. Paul's Beacon group, which is campaigning for net zero. And so we will continue to be pushing this barrow for as long as it takes. My efficient electric home.
There's a Facebook group called My Efficient Electric Home, which has a whole lot of people try to do this sort of thing all over Australia. And they are really good for recommending information in your suburb or in your area or all of Australia about where do I find an induction unit? What sort of thing do I tell the electrician? What do I need to tell the plumber? All that kind of stuff. Sharing information. So it's My Efficient Electric Home. And it's got
This is what we want to do on the St. Paul's website, of course. We will get that PowerPoint and the whole recorded thing we've just done. We will put that on the St. Paul's website. But we'll also start getting a whole lot of information about this transition and what can be done. So, and Rosen's very good at pulling this together and putting it in nice little dot points. So we'll have that available on the website. So that'll at least get things going that way.
Okay, look, thank you all very much for coming along. Very good.